Imagine this. A political fight gets so intense that lawmakers literally pack their bags and flee the state.
Yeah.
Then accusations of bribery start flying, and you're left wondering about the whole legislative process.
Right.
What happens when things get that messy? Today, we're doing a deep dive into exactly that kind of story unfolding right now in Texas. It's this high-stakes legal and ethical battle.
And for this deep dive, we're pulling from quite a stack of sources. We've got official statements, straight from the Attorney General's office.
Okay.
We have detailed reporting from investigative journalists, and we're even looking at specific bits of the Texas Penal Code itself.
Right.
So our mission today is really to unpack these allegations, try to make sense of the specific laws involved, and maybe connect it all to Texas's, well, let's say, complicated history with campaign ethics enforcement.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
It's a chance to see how different sides clash when, the basic integrity of how government works is questioned.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This goes way beyond just politics, doesn't it? It touches on legislative strategy, sure, but also where the lines are for political money and really how much trust we can have in our officials. Okay, so where does this story really kick off?
It starts with a pretty dramatic move in the Texas House. Over 50 Democrats just left the state.
50.
Wow. Yeah, packed up and went all the way to Chicago.
Why Chicago? Just to get out of Texas?
Essentially, yeah. The goal was to break quorum. The Texas House needs 100 members present to actually do business, to vote on laws.
Okay, the quorum threshold.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
By leaving, the Democrats ensured the Republicans, who control the House, couldn't reach that number.
So, grinding things to a halt, what were they trying to stop specifically?
The main target was a new congressional map proposed by the GOP. The Democrats called it a power grab, arguing it could unfairly give Republicans 5 extra seats in the 2026 midterms.
And this kind of walkout, has it happened before?
It has, actually. It's not totally unprecedented. There was a similar situation back in 2021. Democrats walked out then to try and block some major changes to Texas election laws. So it's a tactic they've used.
It's a bold one, for sure. High stakes.
Very high stakes. And what's really fascinating is how fast this whole thing blew up from a legislative tactic into, serious legal accusations.
Very quickly.
Just days after they left, August 6th, 2025, that's when Attorney General Ken Paxton announced an investigation into Beto O'Rourke's political group, Powered by People.
Okay, Beto O'Rourke's group and the accusation.
The AG's office put it pretty bluntly. They said the group might be involved in unlawful activity, possibly, and this is the key phrase, operating an illegal financial influence scheme to bribe runaway Democrats.
Bribe. That's a strong word.
Extremely strong. It immediately shifts this from a political fight to a potential criminal matter.
And Paxton himself, he didn't mince words, did he?
Not at all. He put out a statement saying, any Democrat coward breaking the law by taking a Beto bribe will be held accountable. Texas cannot be bought.
Wow. That's incredibly direct. Basically saying money was the reason they left.
That's the implication, yes. And public reports do suggest that Powered by People has been a major source of funds for these lawmakers.
Oh, major.
Well, the group reportedly had about $3.5 million in its war chest.
Okay.
And they explicitly stated they were funneling 100% of donations to support this quorum break.
And what kind of support are we talking about? Just general campaign funds?
More specific than that, according to the reports, covering costs like plane tickets to Chicago, their hotel rooms, food, logistical help, essentially funding the walkout itself.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't just them. Other groups got involved too, like the Texas Majority PAC, that's one backed by George Soros.
Okay, so coordinated fundraising.
Seems like it. Democrats even set up a website called Rigged Redistricting, specifically for donations. And you had the state Democratic Party chair, even the DNC, pledging financial backup. It looked like a pretty organized effort.
But the Democrats who walked out, they're obviously not agreeing with this bribery narrative.
Oh, definitely not. The House Democratic Caucus fired back pretty hard. They put out a statement saying, every dime of expense for this effort is being paid for lawfully.
And they pushed back on Paxton, too, right?
They did. They brought up his own past issues, specifically his impeachment trial in 2023, even though he was acquitted, trying to paint him as corrupt himself.
So it's not just political disagreement anymore. It's really turned into a legal war.
Absolutely. You've got Governor Abbott warning about potential felony charges for anyone fundraising to cover potential fines the lawmakers might face.
Right, because they can be fined for missing sessions.
Exactly. And even Senator John Cornyn got involved, asking the FBI for assistance. So the pressure is mounting from multiple directions.
Okay, to really understand what's at stake, we probably need to look at the actual Texas laws here. What does bribery mean legally in Texas?
Good question. Let's dive into the Texas Penal Code. Section 36.02, that's the bribery statute. Basically, it says bribery happens if someone intentionally, knowingly offers or accepts any benefit, usually money or something valuable, as consideration for how a public servant votes or their opinion or decision.
So a direct trade.
Yeah.
Money for a vote, essentially.
Or even for not doing something you're legally required to do. The law also covers giving a benefit for a violation of a duty imposed by law, like maybe the duty to be present for a quorum.
Ah, interesting angle. And what counts as a benefit?
It's defined pretty broadly, anything reasonably regarded as pecuniary gain or pecuniary advantage. So money, sure, but maybe other valuable things too.
And the penalty?
It's serious. Bribery is a second-degree felony in Texas. That means potentially 2 to 20 years in prison.
Wow.
And a fine up to $10,000. So definitely not a minor charge.
Okay, so that's bribery. But what about political contributions? Because people give money to politicians all the time. How's that different? That seems like the key question here.
It really is the crux of the issue, and the law recognizes this. There's generally an exception for political contributions. Giving money to a campaign isn't automatically bribery.
But there's a catch, I assume.
There is. The exception disappears if there's evidence of an express agreement.
An express agreement, meaning?
Meaning a clear, explicit deal where the official agrees to take specific action or withhold action because they received the benefit and they wouldn't have done it otherwise.
So you need proof of that specific conversation, that quid pro quo.
Exactly. Direct evidence. You can't just infer it because money changed hands around the same time and action was taken. Proving that express agreement is often the biggest hurdle in these kinds of cases. It's tough.
I can imagine. Okay, the sources also mentioned something else, coercion of a public servant. How does that fit in? Is that another potential charge?
It could be another angle. That's section 36.03 in the Penal Code. Coercion is about trying to influence a public servant's duty or trying to get them to violate their duty by using threats or other forms of pressure, not necessarily a bribe.
So less about exchanging benefits, more about pressure or threats.
Right. Usually it's a Class A misdemeanor. But, and this is important, if the threat involves committing a felony, then the coercion charge itself can jump up to a third-degree felony.
Okay, another layer of complexity.
Yeah.
And then there's the House rules issue, too, about the fines.
Yes, that adds another twist. The Texas House actually adopted rules back in 2023 that specifically say lawmakers cannot use political contributions to pay the fines they get for missing sessions.
Which are $500 a day, right?
That's the figure, yes. So the question becomes, how are these out-of-state expenses and any potential future fines being paid? If political donations are covering travel and lodging, does that violate the spirit or even the letter of that House rule separate from the bribery question?
It just keeps getting more complicated.
It does.
So this whole dramatic situation, the walkout, the investigation, it seems to shine a light on maybe a bigger issue in Texas, how campaign finance and ethics laws are actually enforced.
Absolutely. The system in place relies heavily on the Texas Ethics Commission, the TEC.
Right.
They're the ones who handle complaints, issue penalties for things like not filing your fundraising reports on time, basic transparency stuff.
But the problem is enforcement.
That's what many argue, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The TEC gets called toothless sometimes because it can issue fines, but it can't actually make people pay them.
Who does that?
They have to refer unpaid fines to the Attorney General's office for collection, usually through lawsuits.
Ah, back to the AG's office.
Exactly. And here's where the numbers get, well, pretty eye-opening. Since Ken Paxton became Attorney General in 2015, the TEC has sent his office about 2,500 cases of unpaid fines.
2,500, okay.
But the AG's office has only filed enforcement lawsuits in about 175 of those cases.
Wait, only 175 out of 2,500, that's what, 7%?
Roughly, yeah. Just 7%. And the reports note that most of those lawsuits happened earlier in his tenure, not so much recently.
So it seems like collecting those fines hasn't been a top priority.
The numbers suggest that, and you can see the result. The number of people delinquent on their fines and the total amount owed has shot up.
How much?
Well, back in 2019, there were about 327 filers owing a total of $1.3 million.
Okay.
By June 2024, that had jumped to 750 filers owing $3.6 million.
Wow, more than doubled in both filers and the amount owed.
Pretty significantly, yes. It suggests the lack of enforcement might be having a real impact on compliance.
And isn't there a detail about Paxton himself in relation to these fines?
Yes, that's also part of the story. Attorney General Paxton himself had outstanding ethics fines, about $11,300 worth, until June 2024.
The Attorney General owed ethics fines.
According to the reports, yes. And apparently she paid them only after the Texas Tribune contacted his office asking about their investigation into this whole enforcement process.
So the Tribune investigation prompted the payment.
It appears that way. The report noted his office hadn't actually taken action to seek repayment from him before the Tribune inquired.
That certainly raises questions about the system when the enforcer himself was delinquent.
It does. And open government groups point to this kind of thing and argue it creates basically an incentive to game the system.
How so?
Well, if politicians or groups think there's very little chance they'll actually be forced to pay fines for not disclosing financial information, what's the motivation to comply? Transparency suffers.
Yeah, it undermines the whole point of those laws.
And, Texas has seen its share of ethics scandals over the years. It's got this long, tortured history, as one source put it.
Like what?
Well, people might remember Chickengate back in 1989. A chicken producer was literally seen handing out $10,000 checks to senators right there on the Senate floor.
Wow, checks on the floor.
Yep, pretty brazen. And then there was the really big one, the Sharpstown scandal in 1971.
Sharpstown, okay. What was that?
A huge stock manipulation scheme involving the governor, the Speaker of the House, other top officials. It was massive.
And that led to reforms.
Big time. That scandal is actually why Texas created the Ethics Commission in the first place. It also led to laws limiting cash contributions and other reforms.
So reforms happened, but the problems persist.
Critics would say yes. They argue loopholes still exist, and the system still faces challenges, especially this core issue. The enforcement power lies with an elected official, the AG, who is also a political figure subject to the same rules.
Right. Can the enforcer truly be unbiased when they're also a player in the game?
That's the fundamental question, isn't it? Especially in a politically charged environment like this one.
So we've really untangled quite a knot here, this dramatic walkout, the legal definitions of bribery and coercion, and this whole backdrop of ethics enforcement challenges in Texas.
Yeah.
It really shows how a political power play can spiral into this complex legal and ethical fight and maybe expose some deeper cracks in the system.
It really does. And it leaves us and you, our listener, with a pretty significant question to think about.
Which is?
Given this history in Texas, the past scandals, the reforms, and these current debates about whether the enforcement system actually works, what level of accountability should citizens really expect? From their elected officials, yes, but also from the systems designed to hold them accountable. How do you strike that balance between allowing for aggressive political strategies, which sometimes need funding, and maintaining public trust that the rules are being followed and enforced fairly?
That's a tough balance. Definitely food for thought.
For sure.
And it feels like this particular story, this conversation about accountability and ethics in Texas, is probably far from over.
I suspect you're right.